Well, we wanted to start off by thanking everybody for the support on our 1-year anniversary of us being disfellowshipped in the video we just put out. And now we kind of wanted to delve into our first Thanksgiving being disfellowshipped.
And officially, we would have been disfellowshipped during Thanksgiving last year, but we were dealing with just being announced and then Lufa being gone. And so over Thanksgiving, I was literally puking. I was so stressed, and there was so much grief that I wasn't even focused on what day it was. I was just trying to focus on myself.
Yeah, because those thoughts about holidays are sort of ever present in your mind when you weren't born as a witness. I imagine it's different for those who were born in as being witnesses, but for those that came out of the world, so to speak, we have those previous memories of holidays, and those are something that are always going to be ever present with you, even as a witness. But last year, going through what we did, those present memories and everything that was going on, it just didn't hit us. Those memories weren't as ever present as they usually are. So now that sort of the effects of being disfellowshipped have kind of had a whole year to weigh in and whatever else, and you sort of get into your own life, those memories start coming back. Or we thought maybe we'd just kind of discuss those today. So what are kind of your first memories of Thanksgiving, if you kind of pop those up?
I kind of have a different situation, because when I was, like I've mentioned in a previous video, I was about 10, 11 when I moved into a witness household. So, you know, I don't know how to express it very well.
But you did go back and forth.
I did,
just
like
because of just because of the dynamics of the situation. You're living with your aunt and uncle, but then you go back to your mom's house to visit.
Right. So I wasn't baptized until I was an adult. So during like all my teenage years and then before being 10 years old, obviously I lived in a household that celebrated all the holidays, but I'd go back and forth and we'd have celebrations. But I mean, I do remember going to my mom's sister's house for Thanksgiving and having a meal. And, I don't remember it being it was a big to-do. We don't have a very large family, but, we'd have the turkey and all the fixings and everything like that. But, it just seemed like it was after, to be quite honest, I repressed a lot of those memories. I don't really like to talk about it.
Maybe we should pause it for a minute there.
Sorry. We had to take a little break for a second. No, I purposely shoved all that in a hole because it wasn't a good time in my life. And sorry, I just repress a lot of that. I don't like to talk about it. It's just part of my life that I just don't even want to go to. I can say that after I moved into a witness household, going back and forth, it was just kind of a funny... I always felt a guilt trip. Like, you shouldn't be doing that. But it's like, I'm with this family, so this is what we do. I don't know what was it like for you? Maybe don't talk about me anymore.
Well, I'm sure you'll interject something here. I have some fond memories, and I think that's interesting. No matter what your background was, you can find some positive memories in those things. For me, it was always at my mom's house, my grandma and grandpa. Great people as far as I remember. But it was like an opportunity. The whole family kind of got together. Of course, you got the day off. I think it was your classic family get together. And that's what, it seemed like it was more about. If you've got a day off and everybody in the family's got a day off, getting together, and then there's the discount on all the meal preparations, it's only natural that people are going to gravitate towards getting together. So we would always have, everybody sitting at the table, and that's an opportunity where Grandma would break out her fine china, or at least, her fine china. We still have it in our cabinet now. It's one of the things she gave to me when she died. It was kind of interesting. She said, no, I want you to have this. And I said, well, somebody else in the family probably wants it too. And she's like, one of the very few times I heard her cuss, but she says, "Damn it, Chad, it's mine. I'll give it to who I want." So it was pretty funny. All right, Grandma, I'll take it. But and I don't know that it's expressly valuable. It's a Yamaka Amy, if you know anything about China. But so it's not expressly valuable, but it's valuable to me, and it's nice. It's nice stuff. Um,
It's the sentimentality of having grandma's china than more than anything.
yeah, I think we've used it maybe twice.
Yeah, in our whole marriage, it just sits there. We should use it more, but
But everybody kind of get around the table, so to speak, and so there would be like the adults' table where all the china was, and then there'd be, of course, the kids' table. And a lot of times that wasn't necessarily about segregation because the kids' table was right next to it. It was just a matter of the association you're going to have, and meeting, getting together with your cousins, and maybe second cousins, distant cousins, or whoever else might be in the family that they invited over. It was usually a fairly big gathering, I would say. My goodness, I'd bet if I had to sit down.
You had a big family.
Yeah, well, they had 3 children, and you've got one. There was only one cousin, my cousin Sean, as I'd always say, and he was my favorite cousin. He was 6 years older than I was, and then we had my mom's brother's children. And he had a lot of children. Had, I think 6, and they would always be there. And then there was distant cousins, so that would show up that were kind of like, I think they were probably second cousins. So geez, I bet there was probably 50 people present a lot of times, if I had to sit down and count them. Mm-hmm. So it was a fairly big ordeal as far as that goes. Bigger than Christmas was even sometimes, because Christmas seemed to be more of a isolated, localized family. People usually spend more with both sides of the family as opposed to having a single get-together. But again, having that kids' table and the adults' table, and then afterwards you'd always have go play. I don't know, whether it was go playing outside, which I can't even imagine doing here. It's, in the winter, it's not near as fun, but we'd get together and go outside and play, or we'd go down in the basement if the weather was inclement. Growing up around the Seattle area, snow was a rarity. So those are kind of the first memories I have. Yeah. One of the memories I remember, I think it was Thanksgiving. We went down, and I don't remember who brought them or found them in Grandpa's basement, but there were a pair of boxing gloves. So all of us cousins were down there beating the snot out of one of another. Happy Thanksgiving, sucker punch! But I remember Sean, he was one of the oldest, and so it was kind of hard to take him down. But Bruce did a pretty good job, as I recall. He was the second cousin, and he was like in my corner telling me, "You gotta just keep on him, just keep on him." So just keep the punches flying. He's not fast enough to defend him, but if he hits you, he'll knock your butt down. But that's kind of the way it was. And then when as we transitioned to a different stepdad and we moved, we were, because I've had 5 stepdads or 5 father figures, you want to call it that, in my, anyway. So it's quite a checkered history and past, and as I mentioned, you can find good memories in any abusive type situations that you were in. But then it transitioned we moved to North Idaho, and had a different grandma, and it was kind of a different dynamic there, because that wasn't because I'd had so many stepdads or dads that it's not like the same as my mom's mom, because she'd always been my grandma.
Consistent.
Yeah. Versus
now it's unfamiliar territory.
Yeah, this is a new grandma. I'm not saying they were bad people at all, and they didn't welcome us as children or any of that, but just the dynamic of, in reality, these are just strangers, Mm-hmm. But and it's funny, you go back to some of those Thanksgivings, and sometimes there's good memories, and sometimes there's bad. I remember real knockout and drag out fights where hair's being ripped out, and it's the adults that are fighting. So it's kind of funny as far as when you look back on those scenarios. Yeah, so I don't know what else to say as far as that goes. I can imagine, though, for some people there are even tighter ties. And it's like I always say, blood isn't thicker than water. And that's an interesting point because a lot of people think that saying blood is thicker than water refers to the relations of blood is thicker than any other relations you might have. But in actuality, the saying originated with the blood on the field in battle is thicker than the water of your relation, your relatives. So it's interesting how that's swapped over the years, but that's what it originally meant. The blood spilt in battle is thicker than the water of your relatives. But that being the case, I've always said that blood isn't thicker than water. It's a matter of what those people have done to you. So in other words, if you've had a bad upbringing or an abusive upbringing, you may have a lifetime of experiences with that individual, but are they strong experiences that bond you? And yet somebody else can come in a short period of time, do really well to you, and that bond is even tighter. So I always said that blood isn't thicker than water. It just leaves a worse stain when it dries up. So somebody that's not even related to you can be closer to you than someone who you've had
all your life.
known your whole life. But at the same time, if you've had a relationship with your relatives that's been tight, I can see how that would be tighter than any other bond. Even if somebody else comes in and treats you like a king, you've had that experience your whole way along. It may not overrule or be deeper than the relationships that you've established with your family. There's also other family you may have spent the holidays with, and I remember going out, and again, it was rather mild where I grew up. Even in Idaho, we didn't have winters like here in North Dakota. So, Thanksgiving usually isn't snow on the ground. So I remember going out and playing football, doing that type of thing.
Yeah, it's easier to go outside there in even November, even December,
early December.
When we think of winter here, it's 30 below, 40 below. It's below zero. It's cold. Where winter in most other places is 30 degrees above or even 20 degrees above. So it's you're not going to die being outside. You can enjoy it, and it's beautiful.
And you think about that. It's like 20 degrees. You don't think about that's a 40 or 50 degree difference.
Yeah. And we live where the wind blows most of the time, so it even with that wind chill, it even feels colder.
Yeah, so that almost transitions us to the time as being witnesses, because most of our time being witnesses has been spent here in North Dakota. So even as witnesses, though, they still celebrate Thanksgobbling. Because, the reality is that turkeys are on sale for 75% off, along with all the fixins. I'm sorry, but we're going to go buy. And most witnesses do as well. And then it's like throwing a day off in football. It's a good time to slide that in the oven. And then you've got this big bird, and it's like, well, who can I call to help me eat this thing?
Yeah, I can't remember a year. I didn't buy a turkey this year. I may today. But, we always buy a turkey. And I remember one year, they were so cheap, they were such a great price that I bought 2 turkeys. I put one in my freezer. And I think it was like a month after, Thanksgiving or whatever. I was like, I got to get rid of this thing. I can't remember the timing. But it was later on, and I said, I've got to get rid of this turkey. So I went to this couple and I said, let me give you the turkey.
The ski couple who backstabbed us.
Yeah, because they lived in the town where most of the congregation lived. So it only made sense to have the get together at their place. So where they were at. I gave them this turkey and they cooked it, and we had like a congregation. And granted, if you know from our last set of videos, the congregation, the dynamics, it was a small congregation. So one turkey was no problem to feed the whole congregation, along with potatoes and pie and everything else. So we had a typical meal like you would with turkey. And
what would be a customary Thanksgiving meal.
Yeah. So as far as the holiday itself, it's Turkey Day. I mean, that's really what it's around. I mean, yeah, we are grateful I mean, everything's about giving thanks and whatever, and we'll get into that in a second. But
Well, we can lay that scripture out
okay,
right now.
yeah.
It's,
So
Philippians 4:6 talks about
yeah,
always giving thanks.
we should do that every day, not just one day. But it's about Turkey Day, getting together with family or friends, depending on if you have either.
Would you
or
say
both.
you said a phrase that you'd picked up from
I just heard somebody say, like, the trend, I don't know when this all started, but I saw it on Instagram or somewhere that said Friendsgiving instead of Thanksgiving. It's Friendsgiving. So you're getting together with just your friends and doing this turkey meal.
And perhaps that's the dynamics of family life anymore, but
yeah, you kind of choose who your family is more than what you're given. And like I said, it's Turkey Day. Everybody sits around, they talk about their life, and they get together and they talk about Black Friday, which is tomorrow, and the day after Thanksgiving, and then Monday is Cyber Monday. So that seems to be like the trend of conversation.
yeah, Thanksgiving is one of those holidays that's kind of weird anyways, because everybody, like you mentioned, it's about the food and getting together with family as opposed to what the origins were, which historically isn't accurate anyway. I mean, remember what'd you do in school when you were talking about Thanksgiving, when you were younger?
I remember just doing like craft things. I mean, when I was really young. I mean, I was homeschooled later on, like in high school, but when I was really young, we did like, colored noodles and made necklaces and, pilgrim hats and things out of cotton balls and
turkey construction paper.
Yeah, different, like red and orange, yellow, exactly. So it's like, that's just what I remember doing.
Well, and that's funny because, again, historically, that's just not accurate.
Got to do with anything, yeah.
That's pretty much proven now and well accepted that, what a lot of us learned or what they wanted to propagandize to us as far as what the Thanksgiving was about isn't in reality what happened. So it's kind of odd as far as the day itself as a holiday.
Yeah.
So I don't know from that aspect. I don't know that there's any appeal to the actual. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to go back, and I'm still tight with my brothers and sisters. We usually visit my sister when we're down in Tennessee, when we happen to be on a delivery or whatever. Same with back in Idaho. We try to stop by. I've got a brother there I'm pretty tight with too.
Yeah.
So it's like it'd be great to spend time with family and whatever else. And there's really no celebration there that even a witness would have to worry about, as far as some other celebrations. If you're an active witness, you might want to stay away from some celebrations because maybe it's the gift giving that or Santa Claus coming in, or whatever. Thanksgiving, kind of, there's really nothing there except for maybe possibly the prayer that you can take offense with if it's at the meal that you might be considering as interfaith. I remember becoming a witness. My grandma was dying, and she
the grandma that we have the china from.
Yeah, and anyways, I'd driven out there, and it happened to be a Thanksgiving. Not as big as it was customarily, just because that's the transition of families. They seem like there's a peaking high point where everybody goes to grandma's house, but then those individuals, they start their own families, have their own children, and as the children get older, well, then the new grandma kind of takes over. The mom would, I guess. So anyway, the group had gotten considerably smaller, but my grandma was literally on her deathbed almost at that point. I remember going there to the Thanksgiving, and she asked me to say the prayer for the meal, which of course I had no problem doing. And I did bring out that scripture and that we should be thankful all the time, not just one day of the year, in that prayer. So it's like I said, as far as a holiday being even offensive to witnesses, other than fulfilling some hierarchical responsibility that's forced on you, there really isn't anything in the holiday itself that most people would celebrate. Because like I said, most everybody recognizes the falsehood that it was based on or whatever else. And then I know plenty of witnesses who get together and eat turkey on Turkey Day, because again, it's 75% off. Why wouldn't you? It's a deal. It's just not a holiday that has the same kind of.
And what does it have to do with worship? That's the other thing.
Well, it does when you're talking about.
What does that have to do with worship? As far as, you want to talk about a nationalistic holiday, I can see how they can kind of make it seem that go that direction.
Well,
you know
it
what
is.
I mean?
Well,
It is. I know
Yeah.
it is a nationalistic holiday.
Well, and that's the whole propaganda framework around the pilgrims and that whole line of reasoning, and yet it's not historically accurate as far as how they tell the story.
But what I'm saying is, and we can edit this part out, but what I'm saying is it's sort of like on the 4th of July. You can only buy fireworks on the 4th of July. Does that mean you're never going to buy fireworks because it's a nationalist holiday? It's the only time you can buy fireworks.
Yeah.
Legally, you can only buy fireworks that week.
Yeah, and I know plenty of witnesses that shoot off fireworks on the 4th of July. Doesn't mean you're necessarily in celebration of it. It's just legally, that's the only time you can shoot the things off.
Right.
It's the only time of year you can make stuff blow up. Well, depending on your location, some places they can't even do that. And all the witnesses I knew went to the fireworks show. They had a big fireworks show on Coeur d'Alene Lake. So it's sort of one of those things that just because you're doing the activities doesn't necessarily mean that you're in celebration of it or even involved in the celebration of it. Because just because you're eating turkey or shooting off fireworks does not mean you're celebrating the holiday. And, obviously consciences differ as far as that goes, but...
I will say this, I've heard of witnesses saying, yeah, they'll buy the food and they'll have family over, but they won't do it on the day of Thanksgiving. Like, they'll do it another day, like a day after or the day before, just so that way it's not on Thanksgiving.
Just so they can legalistically avoid the situation. Yeah, what's the scripture say about
difference?
It? About idolatry and food. Sometimes it's just a game play.
Yeah. It's an interesting point, too, because that scripture that talks about food, and, we shouldn't eat food that would stumble our brother because it may be offered as a sacrifice, but that food was used in worship, and that's what I'm talking about.
And that was, like you said, that food was even used in worship at their pagan temples, and then they would sell that in the marketplace.
Yeah, you talk about the commercial side of it then,
And that's the other thing, to talk about it. Let's face it. It is a commercial holiday. Most holidays are. Mm-hmm. It's about how they can sell their product. They move out more turkeys on that day than they probably do through 3 years without that day. And it's the same thing with Black Friday. There's a reason why they call it Black Friday. Why all of a sudden is it that businesses go from being in the red to being in the black? And we'll talk about that another time. But a lot of it's just commercialized. So as far as Thanksgiving as a holiday, I don't necessarily see that as being ever something we missed or ever something that we felt we had to even stay away from as far as a holiday, if that makes any sense.
It's just kind of a strange holiday, really. I think it is anyway.
As far as its dynamics of not being that offensive either direction for a witness.
Yeah.
Although socially it was something you didn't do. You said you didn't do. Oh, no, I don't celebrate Thanksgiving. Hey, where's the turkey? Football on? Hey, let's get some family together. We all got the day off.
Yeah. I do want to say this. I remember, one of the things I do remember, because my mom worked for the paper. And during that time, she'd always have the paper, of course, right away because she worked there. But I remember it just being stacked. Just stacked.
Black Friday.
Full of ads. That is one memory I do remember. And we don't get the newspaper now because we get most of our news online. So I just forget, the amount of commercialism that goes into, Thanksgiving, Black Friday, and then prepping for Christmas. But I mean, and she does live in an area where there's, quite a population. So it had to have been like a couple inches thick. It seemed like it was just crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll go buy a turkey or not.
They've had some deals, but we just haven't been out enough and at the right place, the right time to see the correct deal that makes us go, hey, I got to get a turkey. I can't turn that down.
Yeah, I do have, potatoes. I could make just a small little meal for us, which is probably what I'll end up doing, just like I do every other day. But, it's just going to be kind of a low-key week because we're supposed to get a bunch of snow, and we don't have any family here. We don't have any. We have just a few friends in town here, but they're going to be with their family, so we'll probably just, have another just a regular day.
Yeah. And it's not like we have any plans to go out of town or anything. It's going to be snowing anyways.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want to be on the road. And we have some other day-to-day things brewing in the background that we need to take care of anyway. So for us, it's another day of the week. And being self-employed, it's not like you have a special day off.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, really the day off would have to do with other people. We can take a day off anytime, usually anytime we want.
It's a great thing about being self-employed. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, you work a lot, sometimes more than other people, but you do have a flexible schedule. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times our visits to family don't necessarily go along with the day off, whether ourselves or them, but more along with what deliveries do we have to do. Don't get me wrong, when we go back to Idaho, a lot of times it has to do with just visiting family.
Yeah.
But
we plan trips sometimes when we go back to Idaho because that's where we came from. And a lot of our family is there. A lot of our friends are, well, we're not friends with them anymore, but some of them, I guess, are there. But, so I'm just saying there's more people to have to share that time with. So it's like you've got to plan.
It's usually a week or two at least, and so then you're juggling different schedules. For somebody's working, you go to someone else's house, and when they're off, then you go back to their house,
Right.
So it's usually only a couple days with each of those individuals,
Mm-hmm. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, be sure that you subscribe and hit the notification bell, and check out this upcoming series on the 12 days of Flipmas.